Welcome to The Golden Shovel. I'm Casey Putsch. Well, this channel is something that I never dreamed of doing, but it's something that has to be done. In looking around for the last 25 years of my life, it's become very clear that in general people realize and think that if you stand and speak out for any type of values, especially if they're traditional in nature, or just stand for basic logic or reason, you risk being attacked. And people are afraid of losing everything because of that. So they're afraid to speak out. But I realized something. If you stay seated and silent, you don't risk losing everything. You ensure it. You all know me from being a big car guy, motorcycle guy, obviously at Genius Garage, helping for the last decade of helping young people launch amazing careers in engineering. But now I really want to talk about everything. So today, this is the channel's launch. It's going to be a long video. So pour yourself a glass of awesome whiskey. If you don't want to drink, make yourself the best tea you ever had or coffee, because it's story time. We're going to enjoy this video. And this channel's not going to be just a rant video. As an example, these are just some books here, but I purchased darn near every major dictionary since the mid-1850s. And it's fascinating. If you just read the definition of a word, the amount of BS politicians that you can instantaneously debunk. You can find propaganda, and you can shovel through the BS of our time. Yes! Welcome to Casey's Golden Shovel. My shovel's not golden because I actually use it, but a shovel is an awesome tool. And yes, it's used for shoveling through shit on a farm. And it's great as a metaphor. In fact, the name of this channel actually came from when I was a little kid. I was at a family get-together. I'm pretty sure it was my great-uncle Jim's house. He was an old Air Force vet, fun guy. And the family, we all loved Ohio State football games. And he lived close to the stadium. And we were over there one day, and I'm pretty sure there was a big presidential talk. It might have been a State of the Union address. I don't remember exactly what, because I was a kid. But I remember seeing some of it. And I thought, that's a load of crap. And so we're at the family get-together, and all the old guys, the old vets, World War II, Vietnam, etc. Everybody's together and thinking they love politics. And they asked me, Casey, did you see it? I'm like, yeah. You know what it needed? And they're like, what? Because I was a kid. I go, a shovel. And my Uncle Jim, he was like, because I was a kid. And he goes, come here. He goes, tell him what you just said. And I'm like, oh no, I got bashful. And he goes, I asked him what he thought the presidential address needed, and he said a shovel. Well, you know, the thing about that was that even as a kid, I could kind of sense when somebody's full of crap. And now, having especially been a YouTuber and having my head way up the behind of the internet and seeing how the nature of the algorithms work, watching media, understanding that, seeing what exists actually does or does not exist in journalism and press releases and mainstream media versus how social media and how it all works together. Oh boy. Yeah, I got to see everything that goes in the hot dog. And we're going to talk about it because with these dictionaries, you can debunk the BS. So we're going to define words. And then later we're going to talk about how they're being skewed. And we're also going to do some videos on how to spot propaganda when we see it. Just sense it. Does it pass the sniff test? Going to be some historical perspectives. And oh yes, I will do some funny shorts. We'll see when that time comes as well. But this channel is going to be nonpartisan. Yeah, you know, I care about a lot of traditional values and some conservative values. Why? Well, United States of America is a pretty damn good place, especially considering if people can complain about literally the dumbest things in the world that don't matter at all or nobody really cares about. It's got to be pretty darn good here. So the other reason it's got to be nonpartisan is I'm going to call BS as I sees it. And that's going to happen on both sides of the aisle. I promise you that. But I'll tell you this now, I'm always going to be truthful. And we're always going to stand for the things that are right for everybody as a nation and world. So I'm looking forward to telling you this story today. And what the channel dedication is about, it's going to get serious, it's going to be funny, and I'm going to tell you some childhood stories, going to tell you some family stories, and we're going to end with music. Because music is an incredibly powerful thing. Right now, political direction, political leverage, movements are seeking to change everything. They want to demoralize us. They tear down statues, some that have nothing to do with anything. And they incite people who know nothing of history or life to attack. They can knock down statues. They can knock down buildings. They can take away all those things. But you know what they can't take away? Our music. So we're going to end on that note with the thing. But I want to start off with something that hit me right in the feels. So this book here, some of you military people might recognize this insignia, but this is the book called The Deadeyes. It's the story of the 96th Infantry Division, American Army, World War II. And that's where my grandfather was. In fact, here's the travels, just like an Indiana Jones movie. Now, my grandfather was there. You guys may have seen a movie called Hacksaw Ridge. Well, he was right next to it on Kakuzu. It got hairy. It got spicy. Real spicy. Spicy enough that there was a colonel at the Marine War College that I met, and I told him where my grandfather was, and he goes, whoa. Yeah. But the reason I bring this up, and we'll get into it later, is in looking through his book here, and I knew my grandfather had this book. He meant a lot to me. We're going to tell a lot of stories about him. But I looked at this after he was gone one day. And I started to notice that he highlighted some things. And I looked closer, and I would think about the stories he wrote. Little notes in pencil. I was his radio man that day. My friend, my first sergeant. I was with him on that hill. And I kept reading and looking. And he would leave little notes in here. He would leave printouts of newspaper articles or something from a sermon from a pastor that meant something to him. And it hit me. He didn't do that so he could remember. He darn well knows all those things. He did that to tell people after he was gone, so that the people that knew his stories and his history would be able to follow it and know it. Know where he came from, where he was coming from, and where they came from. So that was his way, forgive me for sounding morbid, but to be able to speak to people he cared about from beyond. So, man, this is going to get in the feels. You guys get that whiskey ready? All right, let's go to when I was a kid with my grandfather. I want to tell you those because what I realize is he planted little seeds for later, for the future. And I realized that's what he did with me as a kid my whole life. Something that struck me as the most hilarious thing I had ever heard was when I realized, see, when I was a little kid, he had a buddy with a little farm. I don't specifically remember the farm or how big it was. I remember there was like a goat, okay? And there was corn, and there was a little John Deere tractor with pedals. It was really, really, really hard to pedal, especially in the dirt and by the fields. And my grandpa was like, oh, we're gonna go to the farm. It's gonna be so much fun. Isn't that a funny animal? Until my grandfather said, he's like, well, we're gonna go to the funny farm. Now, especially if anybody from an older generation will know that funny farm to a kid just means this is a funny place. There's funny animals, there's funny tractors. It's gonna be a good time. We're going to the farm. Well, funny farm is also slang for a mental institution, especially for an older generation, which is hysterical when you realize that me as a little kid would go with my grandpa and he goes, hey, tell him where we're going. I'd be like, Grandpa's taking me to the funny farm, which is hysterical because I never got it all growing up. I think I didn't get it until he was gone. I go, oh my God, my grandfather, that was hilarious with his friends. It wasn't mean. It wasn't a mean joke. It was just hysterical. It was like a little seed. It was a sense of humor for when I was gone. I wonder if he'd figure out, it's damn, took you long enough, Casey, to get it. But that's hysterical. I would tell people my grandpa's taking me to the mental institution, basically, the funny farm. I was all excited about going to the farm. But you know, there were so many other things. He was a doctor of optometry. And I remember being in his practice when he was working. You know, family were there. And one day he told me, he goes, Casey, I want you to learn all your multiplication tables. And this is when I was young, before we were really doing it in school. I want you to know them right now, lickety split, all the way to 12. Every single thing, bang, bang, bang. Not only do I want you to say them and recite them, but I want you to understand the structure of the numbers and how they work together. And if you do, I'll give you, and I don't remember how much it was, maybe $50 or something, which is a lot of money to a kid back when. But you had to know. So I had to do my work. I had to do that and learn it and for it to sink in. And I did. But what did he give me? He gave me the ability to know math quicker. He put me in a position to learn, to better myself. You know, and that kept going. Even as a kid, so I go visit the grandparents. And when they lived at the house that we could, I would bring my air pistol, my air rifle, BB gun, etc. And I would shoot thousands of rounds at aluminum cans, at targets. Trick shots. See what I could bounce it off. Can I shoot the string that's holding the can at this far? And my grandfather, being a deadeye from World War II, he'd be like, you're standing wrong. Get your elbow under there. Hand back here. You got the balance all wrong. It's going to take too long to shoot like that. He was teaching me to shoot thousands upon thousands of rounds. In fact, my one pneumatic air pistol, it originally was black. It was old. It was from the 60s. And I shot it so many times and pumped it so many times that it wore through the black finish. It wore through the plating down to bare brass. And I got good, but I didn't realize it. The gift he was giving me with that. Even as a little kid, the funny little memories, you know, as stupid little kids, you're like, he said, hey, you want some cinnamon toast? I'm like, cinnamon? Gross, toast? Bleh. So like 5 minutes later, he's like, hey, what about I make you some Rolly toast? So he just makes up a name, and it was cinnamon sugar toast, and it was great. And, you know, you learn those things as a kid, as a little boy, you know, and my grandmother was so supportive, so awesome, you know, the World War II generation. I remember finding fireworks, you know, like ladyfingers all together in a string, and I'd take them apart, like little sticks of dynamite, and blow stuff up and throw it and have fun as a silly little boy would. My grandpa's like, be careful with that, don't get yourself too close. But it was kind of one of those parenting. And one day, one of the firecrackers sure as heck popped up and hit the bucket with all the other firecrackers. And all hell broke loose. That was a big smoke cloud as a little kid, and that was a lot of confusion. And I ran, and everything was okay. And my grandpa was like, whoa! My granddad knew exactly what was happening. And he came out, and he was like, well, what'd you learn? And I'm like, you got to keep that pretty damn far away. Learning how to do things like that, even working in a shop, being safe. That's how it was, you know? But we would drive around when I was a kid, all around with my grandfather, whether he was doing errands, we're going to go visit friends far away, close. He loved to drive his cars. He had a Cadillac and an old Mercedes in the 80s. He really cared about manufacturing, whether it was American manufacturing, and he's like, those darn Germans, they make great stuff. And we would always listen to band music. Band, brass band, swing band, yeah, that's more like at home, but I'm talking like military marches, marching band music. That's what I listened to all the time when I was a kid. And I was like, Granddad, can we listen to like the radio, like anything? He's like, no, nothing like band music. Okay. And there were songs that I liked. A song like, this one. And, you know, I remember that. And I didn't realize until so many years later, and it was a year after he was gone, when I was at my home with my wife, before the little one came along, and it was 4th of July weekend. It was a great 4th of July here. We're by a fort, and it's just an American celebration. And so I thought, you know, I want to hear American music. So I was going on Pandora and trying to figure it out, and the stations were suggesting. One was United States military band music. I'm like, all right, click that. And it hit me in the feels pretty quickly. I was really enjoying it. It was perfect for the time, perfect for the United States American, all the things that we're proud of. And then I realized, holy crap, these are all the songs that I listened to with my grandfather driving around. And I knew them all. Whether it's Sousa, whether it's Bagley's National Anthem March, Bugler's Holiday, whether it's Le Regiment, which is originally a French song and used for Ohio State Script, Ohio, you name it. I listen to all those things. Certainly every song of every military branch. It really mattered to him, and he left me that gift. I wouldn't have had it otherwise, to know the music where we all came from, the American music, what meant something to him. But it was beyond that. It was responsibility for your family. We'd fix up the house for grandma, fixing a stair, fixing a door, fixing the floor, fixing an appliance, whatever. My grandmother was so proud when you would be able to fix things. Even gardening as a little kid. And he let me call the shots, and I made my grandmother a kooky garden, but she loved it. But he could take time to relax. Whether it's seeing friends, go fishing, go shooting, you know, make yourself a highball. I learned to make my grandmother a mean cocktail. She liked that. And then I'd bring her a highball, and she'd sit there, and she goes, thank you. Click, like score another one. There were powerful stories too, you know. His father meant a heck of a lot to him. And he would tell me how you could always count, as he put it, on my daddy. You could always count on his word, and he kept it. Whether he promised you a licking or an ice cream cone, you were going to get it. And before he died, my grandfather had this little cannon. This beat up little cannon. It says Valley Forge on it. And actually, if any of you guys have seen my most recent race car helmet, it's the same cannon as painted on the back of it. The reason being is my grandfather's father told him a few days before he died, he gave him this cannon and said, son, no matter how bad things get, remember, they'll never be as bad as they were at Valley Forge. My grandfather kept this the whole time. It meant a lot to him. Even when he was older and very much in the twilight, his little cannon mattered. And he did tell war stories from World War II, from Okinawa. And, you got a Purple Heart, so as a little kid, you're like, Grandpa, can we see the hole in your leg? Things like that. And what it was, and we heard him. Spending the night in the cave, sitting on the dead enemy. When everything broke loose and he got stuck in a cave overnight, sitting there, reading his little Bible, and polishing his bullets, wondering how many he can get of them before they got him. All of the stories. But as I got older, there were powerful things and nice things too. He loved his gadgets. He loved CDs. He made me a CD when I was a kid. Actually, it wasn't a CD. He took his CD and copied it on a cassette tape, and I listened to it on the stereo that a friend gave me every night. This neat American folk music and stuff. I nearly forgot about that until years later, when he was gone, I found the original CD. And it's funny because actually that CD is now stuck in the CD player of my truck. It won't come out. That's the only CD I can listen to now. And I think it was the Cincinnati Orchestra doing Down on the Farm. And even guest starred Tom Wopat from the Dukes of Hazzard singing Thank God I'm a Country Boy, I think. But it was great. It always remembered me of him and the past and who we are, where we came from. So that was the connection to my grandfather in that regard. But as I got older, there were powerful things too. I wanted a car. I wanted to restore a car, to build something. And when you don't have any money, you don't have any ability. And my grandfather loaned me the money to build my first car. And he gave me here's when the money's due, here's the interest, here's how it is, made me present it, everything why I think it is, and decides it's an investment, just like as somebody would invest in something. And I did. And I did well in the car. And I paid him back. And he goes, hold on. You got any other ideas? Let's let it ride. And he invested in me. But when he was doing that, I was learning about business. I was learning about investment as a younger guy. And he was super into politics. And when I was in my 20s, I cared more about chasing fast cars and pretty girls. Not actually the opposite, even though it's funny to say. But he would always send me political related things going on, things that worried him. And I paid attention, but I didn't pay attention because I was young. But he said something to me one day. He goes, and this may sound extreme to some of you, but for the rest of you watching the world events right now, you go, holy crap. He goes, Casey, I know the plays. I've been studying this stuff since World War II. Since I got in an argument with my sociology professor in 1950 at Ohio State on the definition of socialism. And he talked about everything from currency, public events, propaganda, government. He said they're going to want world government, and they can't do that until they destroy the United States. And this is how they'll try. And I remembered he said that. But like I said, I was young and doing my own thing, trying to have fun, trying to go somewhere, right? Well, I tell you this, since he's been gone, that's been hard, and we all miss having him around. And his brother told me one day when something neat was happening, I wish Granddad was around to see this. And I said, yeah, me too, but he had his time and it was good. And the only thing I can say is, in a sense, that I'm glad he had his time before he was around to see what's happened in the last few years. So I think it's our turn to do something about it. Because you can see that happening. And I looked around and saw, oh my God, everything my grandfather told me was right. And it's happening the way he said it. Which frankly is what in the last number of years has made me pay a lot of attention to world events and what's going on and seeing that now. But maybe it's because it's a certain age. Maybe it's because the important people in my life, the people I looked up to, are gone now. And I have a child and a wife and a career and look after people, mentor people, and go somewhere. So I think when you get to that point in your life, then you have to decide what's important to you. Are you going to sit down Or are you going to stand up? Yeah. You know, the funny thing is, I have to tell you this. I'm so embarrassed of this to this day. So Obama got in office a long time ago. Now, it's been a while. And I was younger. Let's see here. Yeah, I was in my 20s. I was chasing cars and girls. Didn't care much about politics. My grandfather was all pissed off one day. And got in an argument, family argument, with my dad and him. Bunch of stuff going on. I said something, big dick move, real ignorant. And I said to him, "You're just pissed off because a black guy's going to be president." And he almost punched me square in the face. But the thing was, there was something going on that got him so bothered, and later we talked about it and I realized, and that was a big moment for us. Because I was wrong. He was wrong. Everybody was wrong. We all figured it out. Everything about. But it was important for me to realize back then what a stupid, ignorant, idiotic, shallow kid I was. Much like a lot that you see out there today. I thought I put this darn thing on airplane mode. Shush. Actually, whoever just texted me is going to be in the video later. So I paid more attention. But that was so many of the things of growing up with him, and he planted all of those seeds that you hope important people in your family, older members, do for you. But there was one other thing, one super important thing he always said to me, and I know he said it to others in the family, because he helped people out in every way he could. Whether it was helping them out, being somebody to talk to, and loan people money in the family. And I think something was a big test. He grew up in the Great Depression. He was born in 1924. Depression hit in 1929. He graduated high school in 43 and went right into the Army to World War II. We're going to talk about that. But he would also always say in the Depression, you'd help each other out. People give the shirt off their back to you if you needed it. And he goes, "I will always help out the people I care for as much as I possibly can. And the only thing that I ask for is one day when I need the help, or Mary Margaret, my wife, needs help, help us. Pay us back. But just be there for us when that time comes." That was the test. Okay, so I know this is going to be a channel where I'm going to talk about a lot of stuff. With this week, in this week alone coming up, we're going to talk about recognizing zealots. I'm also going to, with all of the dictionaries, define what fascism actually is, because I don't think the general populace realizes it, and it's being skewed. And the other thing is spotting propaganda. I say that because I don't want you to forget what this channel is about, but it's really important, this next part. So I want to tell you a little bit of his life story, because this gets pretty neat. This is real tied into American history, and I got some old books here and some things to show you. You know, the first one that's kind of fun is High School Yearbook, 1942. Here he is, 1942. Wearing glasses, looking a lot like I did back when I had hair. And it's interesting too, because on that same page right across is a view of the assembly line at Curtiss-Wright. Curtiss-Wright might have sponsored this book, I don't know. Flying Tigers for the Pacific Theater. Wouldn't be but a couple of years until my grandfather was underneath these things, watching them, seeing it, being in combat. That was 1942. Now, a couple things from there. He soon graduated. And I wear this now and then because it means something to me. But this is his class ring from 1943. Columbus, Ohio. And he wore this ring all through World War II in the Pacific. The ring saw some action. He had it for a long, long time. And it means something to me to have that every now and then. But I found this here. This is real neat. This is a diary of his time in the service. My life in the service, it says. Now there's a note in here I only just saw. It's literally for you to keep notes of everything from who your buddies are. And then sadly later write which one was KIA. But there's something in the beginning of this where it talks about why you should keep a diary. Remember, the value of this record lies in the future. The time to create that value is now. still basically a kid when he got this. The value of this record lies in the future. It might have stuck with him. But there's some amazing things in here. And there's something else, another book that went along. This, he called it his Little Testament. It's a copy of the New Testament, the Bible. If I open this up, this was presented to Clay Barfield for memory work, 1933. He was 9 years old, from Mrs. Stevens, Sunday school teacher. This also went with him through World War II in the Pacific. But before we get to those stories and some details on the rest of his life, I want to read you a couple things out of this diary from Basic. Oh, goodness gracious. Here's one. Wednesday, August 25th, 1943, right after graduating high school, that same year. Another class in military sanitation. We went through the gas chamber this morning. The first time we had our masks on and we didn't feel anything on our eyes. The second time we went in without our masks and then put them on and stayed in a while and then took them off and went out. My eyes were burning so that I couldn't see. My body felt as if it were on fire. Most uncomfortable feeling I have ever had. It was only a small dose, but it gave me confidence in my mask. Next, we had a class in defense against our attack. Afternoon, we had 4 hours of, is it PR, phys ed? I can't read that real well, forgive me. After supper, I cleaned my rifle, clothes, mask, marked my clothes off, shaved, showered, and shined shoes. Didn't get to bed until 10:40 p.m. I'm going to read you guys a couple more. Shooting. Well, he was always proud of shooting. Probably why he taught me so much and let me shoot so many thousands of rounds of my air gun when I was a kid. Friday, September 3rd, 1943. Up early and in the pits. Fired from 500 yards today. Made 33 in prone. At rapid fire, I made 11 out of 15 and 15 out of 15 in prone at 300 yards. I made 36 out of 40 in the same thing at 200 yards. I made 11 out of 15 and 15 out of 15 and 40 out of 45 under rapid fire. Got in at 7 p.m., cleaned rifles, and got to bed at 10:30 p.m. Here's a neat one. Chow was good at noon. Had a downpour at noon. Had an hour of map reading afternoon. Started to pour during the next hour of extended order. We watch demonstrations. Next we had dismounted drill in the rain. Instead of PT in the rain, we went into the classroom and had, can't read that, map reading. Cleaned my rifle and bayonet. Went to the service club and talked to MM. That's my grandmother. And they were dating. High school sweethearts, you know. I think he met her in the 8th grade. Got soaked. Come back and cleaned 22 straight up and went to bed. Isn't that neat? There's one story in here about his dad coming by, and that was neat to see as well. But here's something they do in a tactical exercise. Monday, October 25th, 1943. Got up early at 4:30. Left at 6 a.m. for the range. We had the platoon in attack. I was in the first squad, and we laid on the side of a hill and fired over the heads of our men to cover their advance. I fired 48 rounds. The second squad went around the flank. He drove a little map. But think of those, right out of high school then. This is fun. Let me just read you the last diary entry. Sunday, November 21st, 1943. Got up, ate chow, and washed clothes before noon. Afternoon, oh crap, I can't read that. Afternoon, and I went to Kilgore after waiting over 2 hours saw an awful lot of good-looking girls. We went to the show and then walked around the town a little before starting back to camp at 9 p.m. I don't know, I just kind of like that. You know, he went to the Pacific. And a big moment of this is the big moment. They were going to land on Okinawa Sunday, April 1st. And that year in 1945, it was both Easter and April Fool's Day. So that'll mess with your head. Plus, you're going to land on it. So before that happened, he sent my grandmother, which was a girlfriend at the time, Mary Margaret, whom he called from the service club, flowers. Because he didn't expect to ever be able to get to do that again after that day. Well, they landed. It's 96th Infantry Division. He was the 383rd Infantry, Company C. Well, the landing wasn't so bad. And the Army went south, the Marines went north. And as that colonel at the War College told me for the Marines, he goes, yeah, later the Marines got a call that the Army was getting lit up and needed some help. And the Marines were like, oh, sure, we got to go bail out the Army. Well, they went down there and went, holy shit. Battle of Okinawa was one of the bloodiest battles of World War II. It was nasty. Swamp, caves, flamethrowers, a lot of dead. A lot of that ended up looking like the surface of the moon. And it was rough. My granddad was there as a private first class. And he wrote these notes, left them for me. As an example, here's his company. The stories he told me. This man, private first class, Lewis Thompson, he killed 12 Japanese. He was with him on that hill. I was one of his buddies. His first sergeant, Walter Sandrowski, second in command. Lieutenant Ford, he was like, I was his radios man on that day. My grandfather saw a lot of action. And it was nasty. They were there for a while. It was really nasty. It was genuinely hell on earth. One of his buddies, which he told a little bit of the story. There were 2 videos on my car channel with my grandfather. One around Christmas that he got to talk to people. That was the last year of his life. And one other time where he rode in my V-12 Aston Martin at the time and told some stories about the Pacific because the V-12 engine reminded him of hearing fighter planes. And we drove around in a Lamborghini Gallardo and had a good time. He mentioned a friend of his, and this choked him up like crazy, and I'll read it out of here. One man in particular performed with gallantry that none of those who were with him ever forget. Private First Class Edward Moscala, 23-year-old rifleman from Chicago, was one of the first men of the C Company to go over the top. Almost immediately, his platoon was pinned down by rifle fire from 2 Japanese machine guns. Paul Lemons later said that he saw Moscala, who led the automatic riflemen, crawl from behind a rock, throw several grenades, and then run about 40 yards towards enemy weapons. I heard his rifle firing, and then suddenly the Japanese guns went silent, said Lemons. He had knocked them both out. Well, I'll pause on that because there's a lot more to talk about relating to this channel, but he didn't make it. But twice more he returned through Japanese fire and hauled wounded buddies to safety. But on the second trip, he paid the price for what the Army was to describe as his unfaltering courage and complete devotion to his company's mission and his comrades' well-being. He was hit and mortally wounded. In March of 1946, the War Department posthumously, I cannot say that word, they gave it to him after he was passed away, bestowed the nation's supreme accolade of Private First Class Moscalas. On behalf of his father, who accepted it, he was given the Congressional Medal of Honor, awarded to that soldier in 383rd Infantry, Company C, which my grandfather fought with. You know, my grandfather did get the Bronze Star because he pulled people out again and again and again. And he brought him what he needed. And he was proud of it because that award he got, and he didn't have to kill anybody. But the awards these guys got, none of them set out to get a damn award or a shiny thing to wear. They were just doing the job. And there's something that I hope I remember to read you because I forgot to take the note. But about men who were bothered, that got poked, that just wanted to live their lives. I'm going to read that to you here soon. But I just wanted to show you because he left these notes. This guy's inspecting a giant Japanese crater. Look at the crater that left. But everything you can imagine to see happened with it. It was rough. Something that was kind of funny. You know, the guys were supposed to pick up a pinup girl at the time. And it was written here. And I remember my grandmother thought this was hilarious. The contest started innocently enough with usual sexy pinup girls. Joan Leslie, Olivia de Havilland, June Allison, and Yvonne DiCarlo shuffling back and forth as early contenders. But they decided to pick Marjorie Main. Yeah! As they put it, fanned the slogan, a fighting gal for a fighting division. She wasn't sexy, but she could shoot. And she was a tough old broad. Marjorie Main becomes the pinup girl of the Deadeyes, 96 Infantry Division. And they like that. But you know, it's funny, little story. The guy who texted me a minute ago is a buddy of mine. He was an Army Ranger, flies a helicopter. We went shooting a few years back, and I brought my 45 long Colt, hexagonal barrel, brass receiver, lever action, cowboy gun, and I brought my M1 Garand. And I was shooting it. Now, he, being an Army Ranger of modern times, typically out in the Middle East, learned to shoot a different way, a different kind of warfare. And he had a whole different way to hold his gun than I did. And he's like, Casey, you gotta hold it like this. If you go in a room, getting things down, you gotta be tactical, get in, get out, you know what I'm saying? That sort of thing. And I was thinking about how I held it, and I realized I hold my gun exactly the way my grandfather did, exactly the way they taught him to back then. So, it's funny. Got basically the same golf swing from my dad, but I hold my rifle just like my grandfather did. So, I'll at least remember that. So if we ever go shooting together, you see me going shooting, and you see how I'm standing, it's just a reflection of the past and where that came from. But that meant something to me too when I saw it, because I saw a picture in here. I wish I could find it right now. But there's a guy standing there, and I go, hey, that's how I learned to hold my rifle too. But it was rough, and he got out. And the story was, and I think this is important for this too, this is important for us all to remember where we come from, especially for me, and why I'm doing this damn channel. You know, after my grandfather was saving a lot of people, he got shot through the leg and the shin. That was enough to send him home. He's going to be useless after that. But he knew he was getting shot at, running back and forth. Water and radio, things like that. And he goes, I knew I was being shot at. I could hear the Japanese guy shooting. And they said it short rather than Japanese, but I'm saying that because YouTube will probably ding me because they'll think it's racial. Anyway, so I could hear him shooting. My grandfather's like, he was a terrible shot. Until after a few times I was counting, it felt like I got hit in a sledgehammer in the leg. And he dove in a foxhole where he stayed until they got his ass out and sent him home. And that's why he got the Purple Heart. But before that, it was a hell of a story. All hell had broken loose, as he would put it. And people had to scatter. It was an absolute disaster. There were a lot of caves on Okinawa. In fact, you know, my granddad only ever said this once because he was such a happy guy. And after all this hell that he went through and saw, I think he tried to live his best life and put certain things behind him. But you never forget. But he cleaned up the stories. But every once in a while, he'd tell you a little thing. And one little thing he said once was, I know what it looks like to see a man burn to death from a flamethrower, and it ain't pretty. Yeah, well, there's a way to get people you don't want in caves out of caves. And unfortunately, when all hell broke loose, he dove in a cave. Spend the night. Safety. Spend the night sitting on a dead body of the enemy, because that was the closest thing to a chair. But you can just imagine being in a dark cave, muddy, filthy, the smell. And as he put it, and this would bring him to tears the last time he told this story, which is on camera if you want to see it. I sat there reading my little testament, this book, that a Sunday school teacher gave him in 1933. Polishing my bullets. These are M1 rounds from my M1 club. Think about that. Think about that being that kid, wearing your class rank from high school, never thinking you're going to get home after landing, having sent your girlfriend flowers on Easter Sunday, April Fool's when you land, seeing one of the worst battles of history, polishing your bullets, sitting on a dead body, reading your Bible, wondering how many of them can you get before they take you out. That will forge a man, spirit, if they get out. Forge them to create something for the future. If you remember the little line in his diary, my life in the service, or at least basic. Remember, the value of this record lies in the future. The value lies in the future. He always said, he's like, because I knew him when he was older, he was my granddad. He goes, hell, I never thought I'd live to see 50, so I figure every day after that is a gift. Well, damn well it was. Told you guys a lot of the nice things. He was an optometrist. After the war, went to Ohio State University College of Optometry. Here's his yearbook. He had a great story. And this is maybe the first story of why he got me to look at world events, politics, what's happening, how is culture changing and being changed or manipulated? How is the United States being attacked? How are things changing and how do we protect it? He got in an argument with a sociology professor one of the first few days about the definition of socialism. Brought it up. He came back the next day after the professor tried to make him look bad, and he read the definition to him, told him exactly what it was, and he says, he didn't say, hey, prof, but he told the teacher, hey, I brought in your book. Remember when I said this about socialism? Here it is. Read it word for word right out of the book. And the teacher said to him, yeah, but when you said that the other day, I didn't think you knew what you were talking about. And my grandfather said, I read your book too. It was the second day of class. So anyway, I like that, fighting spirit. But that's what he said. He's seen changes in everything happening since that time. That was 1950. It's now 73 years since that time. But I'm going to show you his picture. And also he left something else here that's worth reading. All right, here we go. And if you haven't figured it out by now, I'm going to dedicate this darn channel and the effort to my grandfather. Top right, College of Optometry. Yes. Look at him smiling, especially after all the hell he saw. Now he gets to go through college and argue with his sociology professors. And then go make his way in the world. And with my grandmother got married right after the world in 45, a young wife. They're going to move to Sydney, Ohio to be an optometrist. They're like, we're going for broke. We're going to make it or we're going broke. My grandfather left this in here, surely for someone in the future. I'm going to read it to you. Appears to be a poem written by Dr. Dennis Waitley, Seeds of Greatness. If you think you can, you can. You can be a total winner, even if you're a beginner. If you think you can, you can. If you think you can, you can. You can wear the gold medallion. You can ride your own black stallion. If you think you can, you can. If you think you can, you can. It's not your talent or your gift at birth. It's not your bank book that determines worth. It isn't in the color of your skin. It's your attitude that lets you win. You can upset McEnroe or Austin, win the marathon in Boston. If you think you can, you can. If you think you can, you can. You can profit through inflation. You can redirect this nation. If you think you can, you can. If you think you can, you can. It doesn't matter if you've won before. It makes no difference what the halftime score. It's never open till the final gun. It's never over till the final gun. So keep on trying and you'll find you've won. Just grab your dream and then believe it. Go out and work and you'll achieve it. If you think you can, you can. If you think you can, you can. Believe in God and you're halfway there. Believe in yourself and you're 3/4 there. That's pretty neat. I also hear some noise. Is there a boo-boo out there that wants to come in here? Oh, there is a boo-boo out there that wants to come in here. So that was that, and we're going to get to more, but I think we have a cameo. Boo-boo, you come here, you cute little buggos. You want to hear about your great-grandpa? And why your daddy's always bothered by stuff that's stupid? Come here. I'm going to scoop you. Yeah, you want to see the car, don't you? So that was him, class of 1950, Ohio State. Had a great life. Lived through a lot of things, seeing the space race, seeing his younger brother in the Air Force, flying nuclear B-52s over the polar ice cap during the Cold War and F-4 Phantoms over Vietnam. Saw a lot of stuff. What, you want to play with the cars? I wish you got to see this little one, the little boo-boo. Okay. Why don't you go with Mama if you want to play with cars? Let's keep going. Okay? You go outside, okay? Go, boo-boo. Go, go, go. Go, go, go. Oh, you be careful with that. Oh, be careful, silly. That's when your relative commanded the ship? Okay. Can you go away? Sorry. Love you both. I wish you got to see her, the little one. But everybody has their time. So, college was over. I told you a lot about it, so we're going to fast forward to a little sadder bit. Man had a good life. Didn't miss a home Ohio State football game for 50 years. That included the Snow Bowl. Loved Woody Hayes, the coach, basically because he was like a World War II general. Loved marching band music. Loved going to the game. All-American. Was doctor of optometry for 50 plus years. Cared about his community, family, kids, animals, loved animals and dogs, guns, shooting. Definitely cared about his nation. And my grandmother passed away first, 2019. They had been married for 74 years. That's something. Well, that was tough. The last few years of my grandmother, for my grandmother, was tough. And she actually passed away. I remember it was my birthday. I was actually at a race. And a lot of the family's buried at Arlington National Cemetery in D.C. by the Pentagon. And my grandmother and grandfather could have been as well. However, there's a difficulty relates to waiting and such after visitation service and all, and it was a tough time. So my grandfather and brother decided that my grandmother would be buried at Dayton National Cemetery, and with servicemen and women, you buried in the same place with your spouse. So we had the funeral for my grandmother, and actually I did the eulogy, which I have to tell you was tough responsibility. Tough to do the honor to people like that in front of all the people you care about and do credit. And that included my grandfather. 2020 came along, and the pandemic is something that the bureaucrats can rot in hell for. If for no other reason than the worst thing you can do to any older person is to isolate them. Well, my grandfather was isolated because he was in an assisted living home, and because he was with my grandmother, taking care of my grandmother. He didn't really need to be until the very end, but he was. And you couldn't visit. You call on the phone, but that's crap. So what I would do is I would drive out of town. I would park my car toward the side where no one would see it that runs it. And he was on the first floor. And I would knock on his window. And I would sit in the grass by his window. And we would hang out and I would talk. We would talk. And that's what we did. But that was tough for him. And he passed away the next year. But something here I want to read you that I found in his 96th Infantry Division book that he clearly was leaving was a sermon called God's Faithful Few from November 10th, 2019, which was a couple of months after my grandmother had passed away. And I'm just going to read it. In our passage this morning, the nation of Israel was called to defend itself. For 7 long years, Israel was troubled by the Midianites who came to destroy the increase of the fields. We read in Judges 6:6, and Israel was greatly impoverished because of the Midianites. So afraid and so impoverished were they that they lived in dens, caves, and strongholds. 6:2. Why this trouble for 7 years? We read in chapter 6:1. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hand of Midian 7 years. In their anguish, the Israelites cried to the Lord, and he heard their cry. Gideon was called to lead Israel out of their pitiful plight. He issued a call for men, and 32,000 responded. However, God told Gideon that 32,000 were too many because Israel would vaunt themselves against God and claim the victory by their own hand. All of the fearful in the army were told to return home. And 22,000 turned back, according to chapter 7:3. Again, the Lord said 10,000 were too many to fight the army of the Midianites, which numbered 120,000, according to chapter 8:10. So in chapter 7:4, the Lord said to Gideon, the people are yet too many. Bring them down unto the water, and I will try them for thee there. The sifting of the Lord took place, and only 300 men were left to fight 120,000 men. That's darn interesting. Very reflective for him of a life. A moment that can tell you how powerful a positive force you can have for good. For those who aren't fearful, who are strong enough, pure of heart, in the eyes of the Lord, for my grandfather. And he saved that. Well, he passed away the next year. And again, I did the eulogy, which was tough, because now they're both gone. And there's a folded flag ceremony, of course, closed casket, in a beautiful part of the cemetery that dates back to the Civil War in the 1800s. And of course, there were the 7 riflemen with the 3 volleys, which gets confused for a 21 gun salute, which I think is just for the president, but in any case, it's incredibly meaningful. And, the military representative did his speech, and they did the folded flag ceremony, and it was presented to me. Damn. I wasn't ready for how much that would mean and how big of an impact that was. It's obviously symbolic. There's nothing to do with just getting a flag. It has everything to do with what that symbolizes and represents. And of course the flag was draped over the casket and folded there and then presented to me. So, I then handed it to my wife. As my grandfather said a number of times, he goes, when I pass away, I don't want there to be any crying about it. I don't need the open casket. Let the military do their thing. Somebody say some nice words. Play Carmen, Ohio. Have a smile and get on with your life. So I said some nice words. But I had this. His Bible presented to him in 1933 when he was 9 years old from a Sunday school teacher, Miss Stevens, that he carried through the Pacific. And a Marine buddy of mine that's a pilot, I asked him, I'm like, dude, what do I read? Well, he gave me a great suggestion, and I'll read it to you now. This is John 15. This is my commandment, that ye love one another as I have loved you. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Ye are my friends, if ye do so, whatsoever I command you. Henceforth I call you not servants, for the servant knoweth not what the Lord doeth. But I have called you friends, for all things that I have heard of my Father, I have made known unto you. Ye have not chosen me, but I have chosen you, ordained you, that ye should go and bring forth fruit, and that fruit should remain, that whatsoever ye ask, ye shall ask of the Father in my name, he may give it to you. These things I command you, that ye love one another. If the world hate you, ye know that it hated me before it hated you. And I said, where he's going now, it seems like at least he's got a friend. It was funny. The last day when he was going to pass away, the nurse had told me that he was passed out basically, but he wouldn't let go. And for many hours, a 95-year-old man, 96-year-old, whatever he was at the time, maintained a heart rate like 150 beats per minute for hours. It's like a boxing match. He went out swinging. And I didn't get to be there with him then, but the nurse had said to him, "What are you holding on for, Clay? You did your part. Go see Mary Margaret." So, if funeral, after I said the nice words, my wife got her phone, which is our one way of playing music, and played Carmen, Ohio. The song is famous for Ohio State. And of course the lone horns come on, and it's beautiful. And everyone there knew instantaneously it was an Ohio State song. And there was a little chuckle from everybody, which is fine. Like, that's Clay. Which immediately fell silent when everybody realized the power of the words. The season past, the years will roll. Time and change will surely show how firm thy friendship. Ohio. Go team. And then the only thing last after that, which was said at my grandmother's funeral, the men said, when the first of the guys from that generation go, it's like, when I pass away, whoever goes first, just remember, I'll stick around until they actually plant me in the ground. Don't leave me just sitting there. So we stuck around. Okay. That was it. So the effort of this channel and me timing stand up and speak out, I dedicate to my grandfather. But I'm not doing it because of him. I'm not doing it because I specifically feel indebted. I'm doing it because I want to. More than that, I have to. There's a lot of things I would like to go do. I'd like to go drive an old Formula One car around the best tracks in Europe and sip from some nice drink on a sailboat somewhere. I'd like to just play with my daughter. I'd like to go hang out with my wife somewhere nice. I'd like to go do a lot of things. I'd like to fly in an F-104 Starfighter and see the sky turn black on day. There's a lot of things I'd like to go do. But I have to do this. Because our culture is falling apart. Our country is being attacked. We're being divided, ridiculously so. And I have never seen such terrible times that I've seen the last few years. So here we are, and we're going to talk about it. If you've watched to this point, thank you. I can stand up and I can speak out and I can fight, but I need all of you. Whatever it may be. Even if you're not ready to stand and speak and get together, I just want to know you're there. And when it comes to social media, please, thumbs up, comment. Let me know you're there. Subscribe, hit the bell, all that stuff. You want to help the nonprofit I've been doing for 10 years to kill myself for? Then donate to Genius Garage. Let's do this together. Let me know that we're fighting for something together, for a better tomorrow. Because I surely do not want the future for myself or my daughter, or even in memory of what my grandfather did his entire life for, and then all of his family before that, for this great nation and this great world and civilizations to be lost. So, there's one thing from Okinawa that I realized. Remember how I got shot in the leg? And he said that he could count the shots, and he thought, man, this guy's a bad shot. And then it felt like he got hit in the leg with a sledgehammer. You know, the difference between me existing and being here and talking with you right now is this. Let me show you something. All right, this is a shovel. This makes a terrible rifle. The difference between me being here and not being here is this. Can you see it? Me being here talking to you now. Me not being here talking to you now. I exist. I don't exist. Life can just come down to moments like that. Yeah. So it's pretty special we're here. And I think we need to think. And I think we need to be not so quick to react. We need to read. We need to look past the propaganda. Find books. You know, it's funny. It's amazing how many politicians you'll know are full of crap if you just read a dictionary. And there's things called libraries, which are free. And a lot of them are in inner cities. So people can't even say it's racist. And if you can't read, make a friend. They'll read to you. All right. Remember, this is important. We all have to know who we are. And I said music's important because they can't take away music. All through human history, music was important to everybody, to know who they are, to rally together, to get through adverse times, and to remember where they came from. They can take away your buildings, your statues, and your properties, but they can't take away the music and how that connects with us. But knowing who you are is so important. As silly as it may sound, there was a recent Star Trek, of the new one with Captain Pike. And they ended up on a planet. There was some sort of field going on, radiation that would make everyone lose their memory. And Pike and the people were there. And they were slaves. And they didn't know who they were. And you see, if you don't know who you are, where you came from, or what you stand for, how are you going to get together with anybody to make the future better or have your own life? And in that circumstance, it was easy for them to be slaves and live as slaves because they don't know any better. Maybe it's not so bad. Well, the demoralization of the West in America right now, the division of all of us, is planned. My grandfather said he knew the plays, and he was right. And the afterburner was lit come 2020. And my only hope is that they did too much too quick and we can see it. Because America and all the people are far better than this. In the world too. But I know who I am. And I think you all know who you are. So together, let's make something better. Let's stand up. Let's have this. Who gives a crap if they cancel you? Can they really cancel you? No. All right, so the golden shovel, here it is. I'm going to get right into it. Please subscribe, comment, hit that bell. All of those things we're in it together. I need all the help I can get from you guys. But I'm going in swinging. And this is it. So music, I wanted to play one at the end here. I told you guys about that CD stuck in my truck. I picked a song. Not a military song. This one came out in 1954, and I think this was my very favorite song with my grandfather when we were driving around. It was called Bugler's Holiday. So this will probably ding my channel a little bit, not for copyright because YouTube has to share it, but we all know who we are. The United States is a pretty great place, and it is under attack from forces the world over and enemy within. We're all being divided. But it's time that we think, and we see, and we talk, and we do. I've got more things to show on this channel. My Omega car. Remember I built that high-efficiency concept car? It's 100 miles a gallon, internal combustion engine? Yeah. Well, I think I'm going to talk about that. I think I'm going to talk about everything. So screw it. Let's have a great day. Let's make the most of now and tomorrow. Please come back to this channel and watch. Because I'm going all in. Bugler's Holiday. Listen to it all and enjoy it. Okay, YouTube is stupider than I realized. I cannot actually put Bugler's Holiday in this, even though they now list it in their beta audio. So go down in the description below and I will provide you a link to the best Bugler's Holiday I've ever heard here on YouTube, and you can listen to it without me in the background. If you can't find it there, go in the comment below also and find the link and click it. And if that doesn't work, I'll try to make it magically pop up on the screen here. But I hope you enjoyed this video, getting in the feels today. And let's start sticking it to the propaganda man. See you guys next time.